Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this special Photoshop Effects project, we'll be looking at how to do a standard photographic technique, and that's the soft focus technique. And you see here we have sharp focus down around our feet, and the skier is in sharp focus, and the background is in soft focus. Now we could do this in camera, depending upon the aperture we use and the shutter speed and so forth. We could set it up, actually do this kind of thing right inside of the camera. But let's say you didn't have that effect. Here's the original image. Notice how we are pretty sharp, clear back to that fence back there, and even a lot of the mountain is in good sharp focus. So, you know, this looks real nice, but there's real definite focus clear back there, and the skier doesn't stand out as well because you pay attention to that background. So we're going to be giving that background a soft focus. Now this uses a few different techniques to do that. First off, we're going to need to separate the skier from the background. So we'll be making a selection around the skier and putting the skier on a new layer. So we have the skier separate from the background. We're then going to use a blur technique to blur out the background using a Gaussian blur filter. When we do that though, if we Gaussian blur the filter as is, it's going to also blur the skier, and we'll have a blurred halo effect. So we're going to have to first remove the skier. Doesn't need to be perfect, but we'll remove the skier and give us a clean background. We can leave the shoes and stuff down here. We're leaving that in focus anyway. But we want to be removing the skier and giving us a nice clean background to work on. We'll then fuzz out that background, and then using a layer mask we can show the fuzziness at the top and then hide the fuzziness at the bottom using a gradient on a layer mask. So there's a lot of little techniques involved in doing this, but the result is a real nice photograph. Really adds a lot to the picture. Alright, let's just hide that and we'll get started here on the original image. Now I always like to start by making a copy of my base layer, my base image. So I'll just pull it down to the new layer button, make a copy, and hide that. That way I can always come back and go back to my original if I mess things up. It's always available here as a backup instead of having to go back and reopen the file and so forth. I just keep a backup right here, right inside of the file. Next thing we want to do is we want to separate the skier out onto its own layer. So we'll be making a selection around the skier, make a nice careful selection in this case, and then we'll copy that selection off to a new layer. I'll just start this, I'll do just a little bit of this, and then I'll finish the selection off camera so you don't have to sit here and watch me making this selection. This is one area where you want to take some time to do a good selection. I'll be using the polygonal lasso tool for this. Use whatever tool you happen to like. With the polygonal lasso tool, what I'm trying to do is come in. You can see here how there's kind of a little gradient right there. I try coming in just inside the edge of that gradient, and that's where I'll be making my selection. And I'll be going clear around the whole image and selecting out that whole image, and even spots like this will be coming back in and then removing little bits of that selection. So that's what I'll be doing using the polygonal lasso tool. Just like this, I'll just come in and build my selection. You can see here I'm coming in just inside. Luckily we're putting the skier right back onto the same image and in the exact same place. So if we're a little bit off on this, it really shouldn't be at all noticeable. You only have problems with selections like this if you are changing the background somehow, putting in a different background. If the background is different, then you might see the edge and then we would need to be doing different techniques to try to hide that edge problem. Notice on this, if I go just off the picture automatically scrolls for me, which makes this a very easy to do technique. Okay, at this point I'm going to simply stop the video and I will finish up this selection. So it'll take me several minutes to do this selection. As soon as the selection is finished, I'll then bring the video back up again. Okay, there we go. I spent about 15 minutes to make this careful selection, so I saved you the time of watching that. Let's now make a new layer from this selection, and before I do that, I always save my selections just in case. You never can tell. If you spend the time making a selection, you might as well save it. There we go. So we have our selection saved. Let's now make a new layer from this. So layer, new, oh, there we go, new, via copy. There's our new layer. I'll move that to the top. So that'll be our skier layer. That's all done and fine. We can now hide that. The next thing we need to do is we need to get rid of the skier here. Actually remove that skier by clone stamping or other techniques to come in and cover that up. And the reason for that is we're going to be blurring out this layer. Let me just show you what happens if I blur the layer out as it is with the skier on here. Go over to Filter and Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. Be giving it not that much blur, but just a bit of a softening like that. So we'd be taking the background out of focus and then putting our foreground in focus. If I then put the skier back on top and we zoom in on the edge, you'll see how we get that rim of out of focus skier showing in there. So you get this kind of weird skier thing happening. We don't want to have that happening. So to prevent that, we need to get rid of that skier on that background layer. Okay, let's just undo the Gaussian blur. Let's hide that again. And we're now going to remove that skier from the image. Now the easiest way to do this, and it'll take some adjustment afterwards, is to fill this with content. Use our content aware fill. Really neat technique, and here's where that saved selection comes in handy. Let's go back down to load selection. We'll load our skier selection back in again. There we go. Let's now go up here to edit and fill right there and choose content aware from your fill list. Choose OK, and then Photoshop will figure that out, and it will then go in and grab stuff from outside of that and fill in that image. And it normally does a great job, as you can see here. Okay, let's just deselect that and see how we did. Actually, that looks fine. I don't see any problem at all with that. I think we did a perfect fill on that one. If we bring our skier back on again, it looks perfect. And we see a little bit down here on the skis. That's fine because that's going to be in focus anyway. Okay, so far so good. Now we're going to apply an out of focus technique in here, but I want to make a copy of this background layer, so let's just copy that. We're going to apply our Gaussian blur to this layer and then only show the top part of that by using a layer mask. So let's first do our Gaussian blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. We already found a nice blur. I'm using one at about 4.8 in here for that. There you go. Maybe just a little less, but that's about where I want it. That's pretty good. Just soft enough so that you pay attention to the skier and not the background. Choose OK. Looks alright, but it shouldn't be out of focus down here. It should be in focus down here and going out of focus up to there. Now we can do that by applying a layer mask. Just put our layer mask on. There we go. Now the way layer masks work, if it's white, it's showing everything. If it's black, it's hiding everything. Anything in between is a transparency effect. So if we put a gradient on here, white at the top, black at the bottom, it's going to show everything at the top and then fade out to hiding everything at the bottom. So a simple gradient will do that job for us. So I'll set these to their default colors and reverse those. There we go. Let's grab our gradient tool, and we want at the top up here just the foreground to background, which in this case is black to white. And I want to be going white to black, so let's just reverse that. There we go. White to black. And we then make sure that you're on your layer mask. You'll see the outline around it like that. So we're on our image, on the layer mask. There we go. So you see that outline. Go to the top, hold the Shift key down and pull down. That will give you a perfectly straight gradient. And let go. And there we go. That gradient map allows us to see the out of focus at the top, and then it hides the out of focus at the bottom where the skis are, which is what it should be doing. And as we get further into the picture, it gets further and further into what's being shown on our blurred section, and it gives us that nice gradient. So there we go. That's how you do that soft focus effect. Now that we've seen all the basics here, let's just see how you can improve this even further. You can do a few little things in here to make it even a better image. One thing I would do, and I would do this on this layer down here before I ever made the Gaussian blur copy layer. If we zoom in, I'd come in and I'd take out that fence and that yellow or orange thing there, that orange thing there. I'd remove those. And I'd do the same thing over here. I'd remove these fence things. Just do some clone stamping, get rid of that guy who's hiding down there. Do some clone stamp stuff and get rid of these things. It'll just make for a cleaner picture. Something else you want to do is just take a look around the edge of your image and make sure that the edge looks okay. And this actually looks just fine. I don't see any problems around the edge of that image, so our selection worked out fine. So not much that I would do to take this any further. It's just fit on screen. I'd really just do just that one little additional step. Take the time to go ahead and do some clone stamping to take out those orange posts and that fence. It would just make for a cleaner background for that image. The last thing which you might want to do is come in and maybe brighten up the skier a little bit in here, because obviously the skier is a little bit dark, and we could do some work in there to highlight that, bring the brightness of the skier up. You can bring it up in this area even by using anything you want to do to create that effect. You don't want to go too far because it's going to begin looking fake down here. We can do a little bit on that just to make the skier pop out a little more. Let's just go up here, take a look at image, adjustments, look at our shadow highlights. There we go. It's not much. You can see right there. I just had to come in and just do the default setting, and it's actually really nice. That's all it really needed, was just a default setting shadow highlight, just to kind of make that jacket pop out a little more. It's not quite as much in shadow, and everything still looks great. And there we go. So that's our finish with that soft focus effect. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series, along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects, by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.